Welcome to the Rundown Reborn channel.
A little over 20 years ago, my mother was killed by one of these. A lot of things had to come together to make that happen. And the point of this video is to make sure that you and your family will never have this happen to you. The story begins, my father and mother built a house. It's on a pond, it's got a nice backyard, lots of trees. There's a detached garage from the main house, and the front walk comes up the drive to a breezeway in between the house and the garage. So one afternoon, it was beginning to rain, and my mother decided to take a broom and go out and sweep the front walk. And the rain started coming down a little bit harder, and she came on in, took her shoes off because they were muddy and wet. So she began using her wet broom and just broomed off the concrete, tried to clean up any mud tracks like we all do. So the first condition that caused this tragedy to happen was she was barefoot on concrete. Now that's not uncommon. Now the concrete was wet, and still, that's not very uncommon. The only thing she did wrong was went and moved a lamp. She just moved the lamp out of her way so she could continue sweeping. Now the lamp was an old antique lamp, and it had an elbow. In other words, there was an elbow coming out to allow the lamp to pivot. It was determined later on the elbow where that pivot occurred had worn through the wiring. So the lamp was defective. But that alone should not have caused the tragedy. Now the key thing that allowed this to happen was the outlet that the lamp was plugged into. The problem is that outlet was a standard installed outlet. It was not a GFI or a GFCI outlet. Now what that means is a GFI outlet stands for ground fault interrupt. A GFCI outlet is the same thing. It's a ground fault current interrupt. Just two names for the same type of outlet. Now a ground fault interrupt is a special kind of outlet that when there is an excessive amount of current that runs through that outlet, it has a trip. It has a circuit breaker built right into the outlet. That way, if there is a surge of power, it can trip and shut the outlet off instantly. Now that outlet did not have a ground fault interrupt. So therefore, when the current came through, and my mother grabbed the lamp, which was a metal lamp, and that current came into the lamp, and then in that shorted wire, it electrified the lamp. But the fact that she was barefoot on a concrete floor and it was wet meant that she had a perfect contact with the ground, and basically all the power in the house came through that outlet, through the lamp, into her arm, through her body, and into the floor, and immediately stopped her heart. She screamed and hollered and slowly collapsed to the floor, and by the time my dad got to her, she was pretty much already in cardiac arrest.
And my father did do CPR on her while the ambulance was en route, but it really didn't help. What she really needed was to get her heart started again. It took a few minutes for the ambulance to get there. What my father really needed was a defibrillator
to restart her heart. And we don't have one of those. Most people don't have one of those. If you have the means, it's not a bad idea to have an emergency defibrillator in your house. It's just like a fire extinguisher. That way you have the tool necessary to intervene. So going back to the situation, that lamp became part of the circuit, and my mother became part of the circuit. Barefoot on the wet concrete, making contact with an electrical source, created a continuation. She grounded the current and therefore became electrocuted. Now, had there been a GFCI outlet in place, that outlet would have tripped, shut the power off instantly as soon as that surge happened, and my mother probably would be alive. Now, code requires that all wet areas have a GFI outlet. That builder did not put one in there. He should have. Now, my parents live in a small town. There was no building code inspectors. I don't have a building code inspector for this house that I'm working on. So if you're not going to be inspected, that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have to follow the codes. The codes are there for a reason. Building codes are designed for public safety, to keep you safe, to keep everyone safe. Think about this. Why are there crash bars on exterior doors? Because there was a giant fire in a theater and there was only one exit. And everybody came to the front door where they came in and the doors opened in. And what happened was everybody crashed against those doors, they would not open, and they trapped everybody. And they all died, hundreds of people. It's a true story. And that's where emergency egress came about. There's thousands and thousands of stories like that are behind the codes that are written to protect us. Now, following building codes is critical, especially electrical ones. They're there for a reason. They're there to keep you safe. A GFI outlet should always be installed in a wet area, such as bathrooms, kitchens, garages, and of course breezeways, especially if there's a raw concrete floor and there's a potential for water to be on that surface. The GFI outlets are there to protect us. Now, this outlet right here that I'm next to is a GFI outlet. It doesn't have the trip. It's still tied to a ground fault interrupt, and so is this outlet below me over here. I'm tying these outlets into a bathroom outlet, which has a GFI trip outlet. So therefore, when you bring power into a GFI outlet, and it has that reset button and that test button, then anything beyond that outlet that's daisy chained in, for example, in your kitchen, you have your first outlet as a GFI, and then any additional outlets around the kitchen tied into that as an extension of that line become GFI outlets as well. So if a surge comes through this outlet here, it will then cause a trip at the GFI outlet. A GFI outlet actually has a test button and a reset button. When it's tripped, you use the reset button to re-engage the outlet. The test button basically makes sure that you can test. It trips the circuit manually and allows you to go and test anything that's on that circuit to see if it operates correctly. My mother was this very special lady. She was a teacher, and this happened right in the middle of a school year. Hundreds of people came to her funeral. It was a big day. She was well loved. I'm doing this video as a tribute to her. And if it helps just one person, then mission accomplished. My mother had a beautiful heart, a giving heart. She always wanted to help people. And I hope this video helps you. I'm not going to make this a tutorial about how to put in a GFI outlet. This video is for information. There's lots of other videos out there that explain how to do GFI outlets, and I'll link a couple down in the description. So take this to heart. Make sure, please, that you have the proper protections in to your electrical systems. It's life or death, that really is. I invite you to subscribe to my channel. I have lots of videos on here about do-it-yourself topics, and hopefully this helps you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.